as soon as I see this question, it is very obvious to me that I'm going to be using my favorite strategy, plug points into equations. Now I know that because they literally tell me that the table is values of x and y that fit with one of these equations below, right? They're not changing the equation in any way. Sometimes that twist does happen, but it's not happening here. So remember, the question is not just the question. It is also the answer choices. And the answer choices here include equations. So equations and points. We have exactly what we need. We're going to use our favorite strategy. So when you do that, just pick the laziest point. So let's start with 1 and 11. And then just plug them in. And I would do this in my head because these numbers are so easy, but just to show you, right? What I would do is I'd say, okay, my x is 1. What happens when I put that in? Well, 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 6 is 11, which is the y coordinate that I wanted, right? So because the y is isolated, I don't really think of that as being like plugged in for. It's much more that I'm trying to solve and get it to 11, get it to what I want. So if it doesn't work out like it doesn't in choice B, right? 5 times 1 plus 11, that's 16. Now I say, oh, okay, that choice doesn't work because the point that I started with does not fit in that equation. So that's what we're testing, right? Does the point create a situation where we have something equal to itself, right? So if 11 equals 11, that's good. 11 equals 16, that's not good. 11 doesn't equal 16, they're different numbers. So just quickly, we would see that 6 plus 5 is 11, so that works too. 6 plus 11 is 17, so that does not work. And this is also a very common thing with plug points into equations questions where usually the first point you choose, more than one answer is going to work. It doesn't bother me as long as you try every choice. When that happens, you will notice, and then you can just go to another point, right? Just choose 2 and 16 and see what happens. Because these are lines, it is impossible for the second point to fail as well. Basically, if it were quadratic, something that curves, that could happen. But for the line, it's just, but the way the lines work, you can only share one point. Otherwise, they're the same line, and that's not going to happen here. So now we can try just choices A and C. Those are the only two left. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. So that looks good. And then 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 5 is 17. Close, but it doesn't matter. A is the answer. So that's it. I would not have dealt with the slope formula here. I would not have thought about y-intercepts and trying to back it up one more unit to where x is 0. Don't be conceptual. The best thing about plug points into equations is we don't really need to think very hard. We have to do a little arithmetic, but there's no algebra, there's no real thinking. You're just kind of like a robot plugging the points in. And that's what we want. We don't want to have to hesitate. We don't want to open the door to careless mistakes. So plug points into equations whenever you can. And a question like this should be very obvious that that strategy is going to work. You are just looking at this. There's not really anything else they give you, a couple words, but basically it's very obvious that they gave us points in a chart and equations in the choices. So your first instinct, as soon as you turn to this question, should be, I'm going to plug those points in and see what happens. And then you're going to get the answer very confidently.